Welcome to this presentation of what it means to be a Glasser Quality School. During this presentation, you will experience many of the critical elements that make up a quality school. This presentation was developed and presented by members of the Glasser Quality School Committee. Committee members are all educators with extensive experience in all aspects of education. Further, they are all faculty members for the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory, US. Today's presenters are myself, Jim Mishler from Michigan, with 40 years experience in special education. Next, we have Ashby Kindler representing the Southeast. Ashby?
Hello, how are you? I am coming to you from Charlottesville, Virginia. I have been an administrator in elementary, middle, and high school, both traditional schools and charter schools, and was principal of Murray High School, the first Glasser Quality public high school. There was a Glasser Quality School.
Thank you. And Sharon.
Good morning. I'm from near the Kansas City, Missouri area. I too have over 40 years of education, working both in regular ed and special education, primarily as coordinator in the special ed area. I'm on the board and a member of the organization for some time.
And Sue Tomaszewski.
Hi, Sue Tomaszewski from Buffalo, New York. I'm an at-large board member on the Gift US board and also am the secretary for the Northeast region. I'm also an educator, started in special ed, became a professional development specialist, and did that for well over 25 years with a specialty in motivation and classroom management specifics. So welcome.
Thank you. And now let's start our journey to learn what it means to be a Glasser Quality School. Our experience begins with the following three concepts that are building blocks in the foundation of a Glasser Quality School. The first is, in a Glasser Quality School, students and teachers are taught choice theory to reach a common ground in establishing a supportive, caring environment and in building healthy relationships that contribute to school success. Classroom management and teaching techniques based on coercion are replaced by choice theory techniques that shift the definition of and desire for success to the student. Teachers and administration become collaborative leaders in empowering students to reach their highest potential. Parents are also encouraged to learn choice theory so home and school can support the student in compatible ways.
The critical elements of a Glasser Quality School are given below. It has a unified philosophical foundation of choice theory. It follows this set of principles. It emphasizes self-evaluation that leads to quality performances, always improving. School becomes a need-satisfying place where the students put school in their quality worlds. And the teaching to students is done to help them understand themselves and others. We work to help students understand how to make effective choices and how to adopt the internal locus of control. Following on some additional information is that this philosophical foundation of choice theory has this set of guiding principles. It separates the Glasser Quality School from most other traditional schools by using choice theory as our guiding light, our foundation. It uses the choice theory axioms. And it is based upon the quality school criteria. A quote from Dr. Glasser: "An important purpose of education is to nurture a love of lifelong learning in all students, not kill it."
So then we look at Glasser Quality Schools with a focus on internal control. So we adapted this as Gift US Quality School Committee. So This is a Glasser quality school where internal control classrooms, where educators acknowledge they are unable to control students, they are only able to manage the classroom environment. They consistently embed choices in the classroom environment, things like seating, resources, work options, tasks. They understand that students' basic needs are a primary focus and that they plan learning that is useful and meaningful for students. This was from our work as the Glasser Quality School in 2019. And another quote from Dr. Glasser: "When we are threatened with punishment, whatever we do, we rarely do well." So the foundation of a Glasser Quality School is just like what is the basis of choice theory, or the 10 axioms of choice theory. And if you take a look, what we really have are, here's all 10. And rather than reading them, we're going to just take a look at which are the ones that really are highlighted for us in schools. So we take a look at number 1, that the only person whose behavior we can control is our own. We take a look at number 2, all we can give or get from other people is information, and how we deal with that information is our or their choice. We may also take a look at number 6, that we're driven by 5 genetic needs: survival, love and belonging, power, freedom, and fun. And number 10 really stands out for us as well, that all total behavior is chosen, but we have direct control over only the acting and thinking components. We can, however, control our feelings and physiology indirectly through how we choose to act and think.
So we'll take a moment to compare a little bit about what classrooms with and without choice theory and without these 10 axioms might look like. So we'll see in classrooms that use CT and the 10 axioms, there's a deliberate focus on the internal locus of control of students. And in classrooms without this, they're trying to rely on the external locus of control. So looking at the teacher controlling the students rather than the students controlling themselves. And things you might hear would be, with the internal locus of control, here are your choices for completing your assignments today, as opposed to, your assignment today must be completed in the following manner. If you don't complete it, it will be homework. So you hear both the emphasis on completing, but in very different ways about what they're communicating as the expectation. You seem to be struggling with the assignment. May I help you, or would you prefer to work with another student? Maybe in a breakout room, if we're virtual. And in an external controlled classroom, you aren't getting it, I'll see you after school or during my Zoom office hours. And again, in an internal locus of control classroom, in a CT classroom, I know it's difficult to save important conversations for later, but we'd appreciate it if everyone was quiet so we could continue the lesson. Please please mute yourself and or use the chat box. As opposed to a teacher saying, you seem to have a lot to say. Why don't you share with all of us? I'll mute, and then I'll mute everyone else. So you hear a very different emphasis on the respect of the student and the request and the statement of the expectations. So again, if we're looking at the criteria for what really is a Glasser Quality School, we have 5 criteria. And the first one is, a Glasser Quality School is a joyful place where a positive, supportive, trusting learning and working environment is created and maintained. So this is a place where kids want to be and teachers want to be. They're, in choice theory terms, they put school in their quality world. Criteria 2 is that total learning competency is expected of all students, and students are instructionally supported until that competency is achieved. So we have an emphasis on achieving the competency at a high level for all students, not on a competition to see who's going to be at the top and who's going to be at the bottom. So for criteria 3, We look at all students doing competent work as well as what we call some quality work each year. So quality work is something that the students are extremely proud of. It's a chosen project that highlights their competency, something they really want to be working on, which isn't always the case with all of the work that's outlined in our standards in our various states. For criteria 4, all students and staff members of the school community have participated in the study of choice theory and or the Glasser quality school model. So they understand what choice theory is, and they use the strategies and the philosophies in the way that the school operates and in the way they interact with each other. Criteria 5, students and educators do well on measurements of learning and school performance. So we maintain that if we have a school that looks at and emphasizes their needs, emphasizes that school is a joyful place that supports students to do competent work, that they will do well on these standardized measures and on their classroom measures of performance, because we're in an environment that fosters that. So another quote from Dr. Glasser in regards to quality schools is, a teacher can give a student information and help him or use that information, but the teacher can't do the work for the student.
In a choice theory environment, teachers learn that they must interact with their students on a variety of levels if they are to be successful. Here are the 4 most common ways that teachers interact with their students. They interact as counselors in a counseling manner, assisting others to think through situations and so on. They interact in a managing manner as a lead manager, convincing and persuading those who do not want to learn what they have to learn and showing them the value in what we are asking them to do. In essence, explaining why. The third, they're actually teaching. They're giving information, giving knowledge, helping others build skills and competencies. And finally, they are friending. They're acting as a friend. But in doing so, they are saying who you are, what you stand for, what you will and won't do for them, and what you will and won't ask of them. These are critical attributes of being a friend and a good teacher. Teachers set clear parameters and expectations in their classrooms. These parameters and expectations form the foundation upon which both positive and quality relationships can be developed between teacher and students. Here are Dr. Glasser's thoughts on that. First of all, teachers lay out at the beginning of the school year and frequently throughout the school who they are, answering the who am I question. Secondly, they make it clear what they stand for so that the teacher or the students always know where the teacher is coming from. Third, they make it clear what they expect of their students. So as one of the criteria, clear expectations and understanding of what's expected of them and what the rules are is critical to developing a good relationship. 4, they let the students know what they do not expect. 5, and they tell the students what they know, what they can expect of the teacher, what they expect of me. Again, this is a critical attribute in building a relationship. And finally, number 6, and what the students cannot expect of me. This goes back to the axioms that we talk about. What can teachers control and what can they not control, and what they expect in their classroom. Relationship building throughout the year, educators use these questions to help build relationships between themselves, their students, their parents, families, and colleagues. The most freedom we ever experience is when we are able to satisfy a picture in our quality worlds. If we put pictures into our quality worlds that we cannot satisfy, we are giving up our freedom.
Okay, to tie back in with the 10 axioms and the criteria that we've developed, we are emphasizing the basic needs. That is an essential part of the choice theory. We're going to just look at those briefly. Starting with safety and survival, that's the essential things for students. They need to know they're healthy, safe, and protected and secure within the school setting. Love and belonging is critical too. They need to know that they have friends. Jim just talked about friending, that they work with cooperation and involvement, caring and connecting with each other. Next, power. We all like to be recognized and respected for what we do, and this is for our achievement and our work towards competence. As we said, we always continue to work for the better product. Fun. Oh, I'm sorry, freedom. Freedom is the need to be able to make choices, to know that we can be creative and choosing how to do this. And you heard Sue talking about that when students were given choices about how they would do their assignments. Fun. Fun is the reward for learning, according to Dr. Glasser. Fun is that enjoyment, the relaxation, the creating, recreating, learning that takes place within a choice theory classroom. And work to create the need-fulfilling school environments for their students. Their basic needs are met, and students then place quality school in their quality world. In working to help our students understand themselves, we use what we call the questioning process. This questioning process is based upon information provided by Dr. Roebling with the WDEP questions: want, doing, evaluation, and planning. The choice theory questioning process has many uses in our classroom. They range from understanding the individual's behavior with self-evaluating one's performance on a particular assignment. The object of this process is always to have the students engage in self-evaluation in search of a better outcome, that constant improvement, and in developing personal responsibility for one's efforts and/or their behavior. The questioning may go something like this: what was I hoping for? What did I want to happen? What did I do? What were my thoughts and feelings? How effective was I? What strategies, efforts, thoughts did I use? Could I use different ones? And what other plans might I have, or am I willing to consider for greater success? So this process just goes back and forth throughout the school day within this quality school setting.
So going back to reality therapy in Dr. Glasser's early version, where we concentrated on creating the environment and its procedures that lead to change. So in creating the environment, it was the emphasis on being friendly and positive and listen carefully to the person's story and helping them in their confidence and being able to help the person find more effective ways to fulfill their needs. And we're focusing on total behaviors, remaining non-judgmental and non-coercive, and helping the person avoid the trap of making promises that they can't keep and taking responsibility for whatever choices he or she they make. So when we take a look at this now, we take a look at procedures that lead to change. So Dr. Glasser helped us to ask the questions, what a person really wants, what's the direction they want to go in? What is it that they'd like their life to be like? And really focusing on the specifics as opposed to just generalities. We really want to take a look at and really help the person find the core in reality therapy is to ask the person to make the following evaluation. Does your present behavior have a reasonable chance of getting you what you want now? And will it take you in the direction you want to go? And then to embark upon a plan only after the person you're helping is agreeing that it's got a good chance of success. And then also embedding a commitment to follow through, since those who make commitments tend to work a lot harder. And a written commitment generally is more effective than a verbal one, particularly with young people. So really important for us in quality schools and quality classrooms. Then still using the procedures that lead to change through reality therapy. If the person strays from the plan, to help him or her or them understand and accept the likely consequences of his or their behavior, and not to give up, because when we give up, it tends to confirm the person's belief that no one cares enough to help. And again, a Glasser quote, "Of all we know, what we choose to put into our quality worlds is the most important." Dr. Glasser also helped us in classrooms by really looking at self-evaluation processes. So in classroom assessment and choice theory, he created the CSER process. And in the CSER process, there is the show. Students would show their work. Explain how you did it. So students would explain what they actually did and how this actually worked. They would self-evaluate their work. And then they would identify ways that their work could be improved. This is students doing this for improvement. And then they would repeat the process. And so as they're repeating the process, they're self-evaluating an improvement process until they believe that quality has been reached.
So you'll hear some differences in what a classroom looks like that embraces, again, the student internal versus the teacher external control. So if teachers are asking these kinds of questions of students, then we're seeing class meetings where students can go through that process as a whole class or as individuals, as opposed to the teacher external control, where you hear the teacher as the preacher. So the teacher is sort of setting the agenda and the follow-up, whereas in a class meeting, that would be done together. That there are shared expectations in a classroom, as opposed to the teacher setting the expectations. So the teacher comes up with their own and shares them, as opposed to students sharing them with each other. And this involves a lot of trust. Trust that students will do the best that they can. You'll see there's shared decision-making. So in a school of this nature, in a classroom of this nature, the teachers and the students are making decisions together, as opposed to the teacher deciding and telling the students how it's going to be. And then you'll hear some individual goal setting. So that goes right along with that self-evaluation piece that we just heard about. Students can set their own goals, as opposed to teachers setting the goals. Now, this doesn't mean that it's a separate from the expectations of the curriculum. And there is some co-work together where teachers and students do this together, but it's really important that students know where they're going and they have a voice in figuring out what's the most important part for them to be working on. Lastly, as we just heard, there's questioning and self-evaluation. So that's a continual process. And that's where students become invested in the work. And it's also where they're invested in how the classroom gets along and how they get along, which we heard earlier in the class meetings and the shared expectations, as opposed to the teacher doing all the telling and all the evaluating, which is sort of that model of you turn in your piece of paper and it comes back with the red blood on it, so to speak, with the red comments that you really don't, you can do away with that if you have self-evaluation and some concurrent evaluation. Glasser Quality Schools emphasize that students are increasingly taking responsibility for their own learning and success, and that we're strengthening the relationship among peers, teachers, students, and families to build thriving, healthy learning communities.
As we bring this presentation to a close, we are reminded of the following quotes from Dr. Glasser. When you learn that you are almost always free to make better choices, the concept that you choose your misery can lead to optimism. And think of how much time you spend trying to get others to do what they don't want to do, and how much time you spent resisting others who are trying to get you to do what you don't want to do. When you get out of that trap, you regain a lot of freedom that you voluntarily gave up when you felt responsible for students who choose not to work. Finally, on behalf of the Quality School Committee, we would like to thank you for taking the time to view this, and we'd like to add a couple of more quotes for your consideration. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world, by Nelson Mandela. And children want the same things we want: to laugh, to be challenged, to be entertained, and to be delighted, Dr. Seuss. If you would like more information, please go to www.wglasser.com and choose Quality Schools under Practice Areas. Again, on behalf of the Quality School Committee, thank you for taking the time to view this presentation.